So Money episode 523, BarbaraReich, professional organizer and founder of Resourceful Consultants.
You're listening to So Money with award-winning money guru Farnoosh Torabi. Each day, get a 30-minute dose of financial inspiration from the world's top business minds, authors, influencers, and from Farnoosh herself. Looking for ways to save on gas or double your double coupons? Sorry, you're in the wrong place. Seeking profound ways to live a richer, happier life. Welcome to So Money.
Welcome to So Money, everyone. Happy January 18th. Happy birthday to my brother, turning 26 today. He's an old man. Not really. I'm an old woman. That's what that means. I'm 11 years older than Todd. And so there you go. If you ever wonder what my age was, you can do the math. Today's show is dedicated to all those type A's out there, all those anal retentive people like me. How organized are you? I mean, I could spend hours at the Container Store. I love creating a place and a space for everything. My mind, maybe you relate to this. My mind works best when the space I'm in is calm and organized. In college, I couldn't actually start writing a paper or doing homework until my desk was clean and even my roommate's side of the room was clean. Like I would make her bed. Sometimes it kept me up late, but I guess it's just who I am. So as we head into the new year, I know a lot of us have this goal to make our lives more streamlined, more functional. To that end, I've invited BarbaraReich, the queen of clean, and she is the founder of a firm that specializes in the organization of people, their lives, and physical space. Her company is called Resourceful Consultants, and whether you're a powerful executive or a busy parent, her advice can help us find more harmony in our spaces, our homes, our offices, even our phones. Yeah, my iPhone could use some decluttering, and probably yours too. And along the way, her tips can help us improve time management and save money. A little bit more about Barbara. In 2014, she co-founded Never Caught Up, which focuses on work-life integration, women empowerment, and wellness. She's also the author of Secrets of an Organized Mom. She's got twins. With Barbara, we talk about how to organize your finances. What can you keep? What can you shred? Whether being organized is in our DNA. She's got some very strong opinions about that. And the financial benefits of having an organized home, office, or even an iPhone, how that can actually parlay into a So Money life. Here is BarbaraReich. BarbaraReich, welcome to So Money. I can't wait to talk all things organization. Great to have you.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be with you today.
I'm a pretty organized person, I'd like to think. Do you think that people are just born into the world with the DNA for wanting to be organized and having an affinity for organization, and some are just complete messes?
I have to say, I actually do believe that. And when I'm hiring new associates, I basically have them follow me for the day and I see what they do. And they might not fold how I fold, but I can tell that they're inherently neat and able to organize other people based on how they fold.
So it is something inherent. And yes, folding is a great place to kind of judge people on. There's so much clutter in our lives. Obviously, our homes are filled to the rooftops, but also our phones and our digital handheld devices are also cluttered with apps and emails. And so we're going to talk a lot about how to streamline all those areas of our lives where we feel where there's overwhelm. But first, I want to talk a little bit about your background. How do you become an expert on organization? You know, we're really interested in organization right now as a culture, as a global culture. How did you find your footing?
So it's interesting because when I was graduating from college or when I was a child, professional organizing wasn't a thing that you sort of knew about as a possible profession. But as we were saying, like, are people born with the DNA or not? I was born with the DNA. I mean, I didn't like to have friends sleep over my house as a child because they would move things. And in my early 20s, when I worked as a management consultant, my associates would come in the office and they would sort of move my stapler from, you know, a perfect straight line to at an angle. And without even realizing it, I would move it back. I mean, I'm wired that way. But what had happened was I'd had my twins and I would go on play dates. And while the other mothers were talking about sleep and food, you know, I tend to be sort of black and white. I was like, read the book on sleep and do what they say and your kids will sleep. And So I would organize the living room or I'd organize the playroom while we were sitting there. And if you're the person that does that, you become very popular in terms of being invited lots of places.
Right. It's true. It's like that episode of Friends because Monica is like the neat freak and she was like hiding in a bathroom one time and Chandler comes in and he's like, okay, you can come out now. But wait a minute, did you clean the bathroom? She's
right.
Like,
I mean, I will go to a restaurant and if the toilet paper is not faced the proper way, I will redo it. You just can't help yourself if you're born like this.
I tend to think that how if you walk into someone's home and it's a mess or you open up a closet and it's a mess, I wonder if that usually is a hint as to how they manage their finances as well. Do you find that a lack of organization in one area usually means a lack of organization in a lot of areas when it comes to individuals?
Absolutely. It's all related.
And what does it stem from? Yeah.
I even find people who, I'm dealing with a lot of research now on how being organized can help you lose weight. And so when your kitchen is disorganized, it impacts all areas of your life. When your home is disorganized, it impacts all areas of your life. And there's some people that are better than others that sort of pull it off at the last minute, but it's at a great cost in terms of personal stress and chaos.
Right. And time and energy. I totally get that. It's why people like you are so gainfully employed. And even though I enjoy organization and I enjoy, finding a place for everything, I need the time to do it. So I've hired professional help in my life. And as we're doing this podcast, I've got a team working in my son's room, fixing up his room, totally redoing it as he's transitioning from his nursery to his toddler room, and his nursery is going to have to go to his sister. Sorry, Evan.
Right.
It's the circle of life.
We lost a home office when we had
right.
So
but I'm all about max, and especially in New York. And I know you live in New York. I mean, every corner of my house has a purpose. There's no space that goes unused. I love compartmentalizing things and alpha shelves and container store and all that good stuff. It's a huge industry, right? Do you think we've become a sucker to it though, a little bit? Like all these storage facilities, it's $1 billion industry, things that we're just not letting go of.
Well, I would answer that a few ways. So first of all, Marie Kondo would say, don't go to the container store and don't go to Bed Bath & Beyond and don't buy any containers and use what you have on hand. And I disagree with that. I feel like if you want the inside of your cabinets and your drawers to look as nice as the rest of your house, you need to invest a little bit. It doesn't have to be expensive. But when you walk into a clothing store, for example, you will not notice the hangers. The hangers are invisible. Why? Because they're all the same. And I believe in the same way that all of your containers and bins should be the same. It doesn't matter if you get them at the dollar store or whether you buy something more expensive, but there is a place for that. And the other thing you touched upon was these storage facilities, which there are times and places when having a storage facility makes sense. So, for example, if you have one child and you're planning on having another child in 3 or 4 years and you don't need the changing table or the glider, maybe you might want to put that in storage. But people oftentimes use those storage facilities for things that they don't want to make a decision about. And what ends up happening is they will pay for that storage facility for years until finally they go back and realize there's not a single thing in there that they want and they throw it all away and realize they've spent a lot of money for nothing.
Truly. I mean, we've done the math ourselves. We have a small storage room in our apartment downstairs, and I got rid of it because, we had 2 and I got rid of 1. Because my feeling was like, you go in there once a year, you look at the stuff, and perhaps it's stuff that you anticipate needing down the road in the future. I don't know when, but I think we emotionally hang on to things because we envision the life that we will have in 2 years or the needs that we'll have in 6 months. But my feeling is that if in the meantime I've spent, say, $75 a month keeping that storage room available to myself, and all I really use is like a $30 fill in the blank in the next 2 years, you can do the math. It's better for me to just give up the storage facility, donate whatever's in there, and then buy what I need on an as needed basis or rent what I need on an as needed basis.
Right. Because you can do very clearly in black and white the cost benefit analysis of keeping something versus paying to store it. But the thing that people don't realize is there's also a psychic cost to keeping it. There's a psychological element of like in the back of your head, you have the storage unit. It's one more thing. You have to think about it. You have to pay for it. And so it's that also that makes it often not as much of a win as people think it will be.
Right. It's the headspace. And I also have learned that when you have more stuff than you need, it creates the illusion that you need more room. So you buy the bigger house, you get the bigger car, you get the bigger storage plan for whatever, your phone, the physical storage. So it becomes this kind of vicious cycle.
Right. And the more things you have, the more time you have to spend taking care of those things. So to your point, it does become a vicious cycle, which is why I advocate streamlining.
So let's talk about that. We've talked about the problem. Now let's get to some solutions. If you have a lot of clutter, let's talk first about physical clutter. Then we'll talk about digital clutter. Physical clutter, knickknacks, toys, heirlooms, financial documents even. I feel like people really hold on to certain things because they think they may need it in an emergency down the road, which sometimes is true. But a lot of times we keep statements for bills that really we could just get online. We can go green and solve that problem. So tell us about your philosophy. Is there like a 3-step strategy to figuring out what stays and what goes?
Well, absolutely. So, the first thing is that when you're purging, there's probably 10 things you can throw away so easily without thinking about it that have no emotional repercussions. Like if you went into your bathroom, there are tons of toiletries and cosmetics and medications that are past their expiration date. So those can go without a thought. There's those financial statements, to your point, that are more than 7 years old that can be shredded. There are all the socks without mates, which, those mates are never showing up. Those can go in the garbage. So
I'm always hopeful they'll show up though. Gosh, I have a whole box of single socks.
Okay. So you have to promise me that when you go home tonight, you're going to throw those away.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you a tip, particularly for your children. If you buy them all the same sock, then that never happens ever again. You don't have to match socks anymore. So that's one way of dealing with it. But anyway, you look at your things and one of the things you mentioned was heirlooms. People get very stuck on heirlooms. I actually did a segment on the Today Show about this, but other people's memories aren't your responsibilities. And what ends up happening oftentimes is there's, let's say, a bowl from your great-great aunt, and it's gotten passed down, and everybody's giving this a level of import that it doesn't deserve because your aunt bought it at a flea market and never liked it herself. So you have to be very careful about the things you're saving, and whether you're doing it because you like it or because there's a certain level of guilt that is part of that.
Oh, can I just interject for 1 second?
Sure.
Because I think maybe other people can relate to this, but after getting married, having a child, I get a ton. We've gotten a lot of cards over the years and birthdays and holidays. It's like, when do I throw those out? Some of these cards are beautiful. They are obviously from momentous occasions, our wedding. I have a box of cards from our wedding from people who gave us gifts. And so do I just pick the 3 that I love? At what point do I burn those?
Here's what I would suggest with that. Because I'll work with people and they have similar, like the box of their wedding reply cards, but the people didn't write anything. They just wrote, "We will attend."
Steak,
and I don't know why people are holding on to that, but when you look at cards, look at whether the person wrote their own sentiment or whether they just signed the Hallmark sentiment. If somebody took the time to write something meaningful to you and it's somebody who is meaningful in your life, then you save it. Otherwise, they go in the garbage. So, you have 2 young children, the grandparents, the aunts and uncles, they send a card. You might display them for 3 days and then garbage.
Okay, unless they feel guilty about that.
Don't feel guilty. I will accept all the bad karma associated with you throwing that away so that you can throw it away.
My mother-in-law might judge me, though, if she comes over to my house and my card's not on display for the month that she sent it to me. But that's another show.
Yeah, mother-in-laws are a tricky animal, and I realize that I will, hopefully be a mother-in-law one day. But a month is excessive. And I was somebody wrote into me recently about how for 15 years her mother-in-law has gotten her gifts every year that she hates, and she displays them, which just continues the cycle of her mother-in-law buying her more things she hates. So you really just have to get rid of that.
All right. What about financial documents? You mentioned, after 7 years, and that would probably relate to your tax returns, but even 3 years, I think, is safe to purge your tax returns. And of course, you're shredding everything. And the reason for the 3-year mark is because the IRS technically doesn't do audits after 3 years. That window closes. But that said, the IRS also will throw in a caveat and say, if it turns out they audit you and you lied about your income and it was a big, big lie, then they can and will request your paperwork for, I think, 6 years, going back 6 years. So if you know you're a fraud, keep your paperwork
and save it for
6
longer.
years.
But if you're innocent, you're okay.
Right. So that's taxes. But what about, utility statements and tax bills and things like that? A lot of this stuff is available online, but is it ever smart to have the hard copy as well?
So to my mind, the answer is no. And this is an answer that's changed over time, because it used to be that you couldn't get those things electronically. So it also relates to having a digital file system that enables you to find things when you need them. So all of that stuff, if you trust your system and you trust that you'll be able to find them, are not necessary to have in hard copies. I also, with everything that people are, asking me about whether they should save or not save, I always ask them that question. I'm like, well, where else does this information exist? And how could you get it if you needed it? And a lot of the information would be very easy to get if you didn't save a hard copy or even a digital copy.
Right. But that, of course, entails having an organized system for passwords and, making
100%.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So, I really I use a system called 1Password, where literally you remember one password, and that's a place where you can store all of that information. And especially with cybersecurity being foremost on many people's minds, you don't want to use the same password for everything. So, that's a way to keep track of your passwords. And there's many other ones. I don't recommend having your passwords written on a piece of paper, because you risk losing that or somebody finding that. But you do need a system for that, so that you can protect your information.
I shamefully will admit that years ago, I used to keep a file on my computer called passwords.
Oh, I did too. Don't worry about it. I'm in the same boat.
Oh, thankfully, no one ever stole my laptop. No one, at least, maybe even if it had gotten stolen, it would have been safe, but it did not get in the wrong hands.
Right, right.
Tell me a little bit about your background, Barbara. So we know that you sort of found yourself in this role inherently, and this is kind of what you've always been good at. But when it comes to, let's talk about money, what is your financial philosophy, and how has your work shaped that, perhaps?
So, it's very interesting because you sent out a very thorough and very organized packet to me several weeks ago, and it made me really think about some of these things. And I do remember my parents were divorced when I was young, and my mother had gone from really being taken care of by her father, and she had worked as a teacher for a few years, but really then was taken care of by my father. And he was, he was a person who was very traditional and didn't want her to work outside the home. And since she wasn't earning a lot of money, it wasn't a difficult decision that they made. So when they got divorced, she really had no financial independence. She had no credit cards in her name. And I do remember one day, it's one of the most poignant memories that I have from my childhood. My mother, shortly after the divorce, a major appliance broke. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe everything's going to start breaking now. But I watched her then pick herself up. She took the Series 7 exam. She became a broker, and she became financially independent. And in hindsight, as we've talked about it as an adult or as adults, she said, though, if she hadn't gotten a job, then when we went to college, she would have had to give up our house, and she would have had some very negative things happen to her in terms of her financial health. And the message to me was always be financially independent. It doesn't matter, how successful your partner is, but you should always have money of your own.
Yes. And has entrepreneurship always been something that you've gravitated towards? Did you ever have a 9-to-5 job?
I did. So I worked as a management consultant for many years. And I'm very good at these professions where you get paid to tell people what to do. But I did, and of course, management consulting is definitely not a 9-to-5 job. It's, it can be a very tough schedule. But I worked at Pricewaterhouse, or now it's called PricewaterhouseCoopers, I think, and then at the Hay Group. And I used to, I dealt with executive compensation and designing incentive plans and performance management for employees and designing those plans for large organizations. And I loved it. But the thing that made me the most successful as a consultant was not my creative and original ideas. It was my organizational skills.
Have you guys heard about Away Luggage? Their approach is simple. They set out to create a product that's resilient, resourceful, and essential to the way you travel today. It's time to travel smart. The Away suitcase is super high quality. It's made of lightweight German polycarbonate and features TSA-approved locks built right in. Plus, your bag charges your phone. Yep, Away suitcases have a built-in battery that can charge any USB device. Choose from 9 colors and 4 sizes, the carry-on, the bigger carry-on, the medium, or the large. I recently test drove an Away carry-on, loved how my wheels turned 360 degrees, and of course, never feeling desperate for a place to charge my phone. I've partnered with Away for a special offer just for So Money listeners. Go to awaytravel.com/SoMoney and use the code SoMoney for $20 off your order. Take advantage of their 100-day trial. If at any point you decide it's not for you, return it for a full refund. You deserve quality luggage that works just as hard as you do. Check out awaytravel.com/SoMoney and use the code SoMoney for $20 off your order today. Yes, it's not something that should be taken for granted. That's definitely, if that is something that is in you, you need to exploit that.
Right. Right. And it was funny. My first client came to me because I had gone out on my own, and I was, working as a management consultant on my own, and I had several clients, and I got a call from one of my former colleagues who said, "Barbara, somebody called me and they want to pay someone to set up their home office. And I gave them your number. Don't kill me." And so I sort of thumpered my way through the first one, learned a lot, told a couple more people that I had done this. And one person said to me, "You know what? You have twins. I've been in your house. I want you to set up my house like your house." And then she told 5 people. And before you knew it, it was a full-time job for me.
And your book, Secrets of an Organized Mom, is dedicated to parents. I'm sure taking a lot from your own life, as you've talked now about having twins. What are the challenges specific to parents and organization? I think, speaking personally, it's easy to feel overwhelmed because there's an industry telling you need all this stuff. You really don't. So how do you help parents?
Well, so it's funny, you talk about, this whole industry of things they tell you need. There was a study I recently saw from UCLA. They have the Center for Families and Family Living. And they said that for each child you add to the household, the number of possessions increases by 30% in the preschool years alone. So it's interesting. But so how do I help parents? I really come in and I help them purge. And sometimes it's easier to purge things when you have someone standing over you telling you that you really, really don't need it. And then I find a place in the house for everything and I label it. So that way, everybody in the house can be accountable for putting things away. And there's no more decision making about where things go. And I like to tell people that there's really 2 pieces to this. There's developing the infrastructure. So, okay, do you have the right files? Do you have the right bins? Do you have the right hangers? Do you have the right places to put things? But once I've done that, the piece that's almost more critical is the process. So what's the process by which things get to the places that you have for them? So it's funny, yesterday I was working with a client on something as seemingly simple as mail. And she was saying, I open the mail, but then it just sits here. And it was really just going through the process of saying, okay, so you have these magazines or these periodicals that came in the mail. Let's put these on the bottom of the steps. And when you go upstairs the next time, you're going to walk them up and leave them on your night table because that's where you're going to read them. And these bills are going to also go to the bottom of the steps. And when you walk upstairs, they're going to go into your inbox and they're going to get paid every Sunday. So it's really a matter of figuring out the process also. And, there's lots of common sense things that aren't common sense to people who don't spend any time thinking about it, which is, if you apply sunblock in the kitchen as you're walking out the door, it's not going to help you to have the sunblock in the bathroom somewhere else.
I think you could be so helpful with couples too, because in any relationship, nobody wants to hear from their significant other that they're a pat rack, a rat pack. So what's the word? Pack rat.
A pack rat.
I just said it 3 different ways. Pack rat. My mother, has somehow managed to not kill my dad over all these years. I mean, he literally keeps boxes for electronics he bought 15 years ago. He'll keep cords for things that I don't even know where they connect to. And they are thinking of downsizing, and it's really worrisome. And she's anticipating fighting because he just won't understand why some things need to go. And so having a third party come in like you to kind of be the voice of reason, an objective voice, I think could save some marriages along the way too. Do you ever think of yourself as a marriage therapist? Because I think that's what you are too.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big part of what I play. And in fact, I was working with a family that they had moved to a townhouse in Brooklyn. And we actually designated an area, and we called it the marriage saver area, because her husband is a piler. And so we actually, in designing the kitchen, we designed a place where, we actually put an outlet inside this cabinet, and it is designed for him to pile his stuff in so she doesn't see it.
Brilliant. We had mentioned earlier that you also have some advice around digital clutter and how we can streamline emails and files on our computers. How do we begin to attack this big part of our lives?
So years ago, I used to talk to people about, touching each piece of paper once and, making a decision and doing something. And I really tell people to do the same thing with email. And there's a lot of data about multitasking and it's all very negative, but that would be a whole, separate podcast that we could do on that. But with your emails, you have to have a digital filing system that makes sense. So you have to go through the process of moving things to those digital files. Also, when you open an email, you should not think about it, close it, open it up again, think about it. You open the email, you respond and file, respond, delete, or if you really have to, print it out and put it in a paper file. And, there's other things you can do as well. You can, I always tell people it's a simple behavioral change, but if you change the subject lines of your emails, you will save yourself a myriad of time and energy, because what happens is you start an email chain talking about the podcast Thursday at 11 o'clock, and you end up talking about, dinner for, 4 people a month out and 16 things in between. And you'll never find the emails related to those 16 things, which may be important if you don't change the subject line. If the subject line still says podcast 11 o'clock Thursday.
Right. One thing I did recently to help I was actually running out of space. Literally, Gmail was like, you're about to get booted if you don't clear some emails out. I went and I searched by keyword, things like Pottery Barn, West Elm, American Express.
You've got to unsubscribe from all of that.
Well, I do unsubscribe, but they filter and a lot. Well, I should say, I've unsubscribed for as many of these places as I think of, but it's just that, sometimes I subscribe because I go back on the site and I'm like reordering. So they get my email and the cycle continues. But the more popular retailers and financial services companies that I work with, Chase, after I've made sure these emails aren't too important, I just search for them by keyword, and then I can filter it that way and then just delete everything at once. And I can in one click delete hundreds of emails categorically. And, it took a while. It was kind of one thing you do while you're watching Netflix,
right,
try to multitask because it could take a while, but
it's a great way of doing it.
Yeah.
Another thing, and I wish I remembered the name of the gentleman who first coined this term. But he talks about declaring email bankruptcy. So then in the same way you declare bankruptcy when you can't manage your financial obligations, you can declare email bankruptcy when you can no longer manage your email obligations. And basically you just start at a certain date. You can take them all. If you don't want to delete them, put them in a file saying, email from this date and start fresh. Just start over, and believe me, if anything's truly important, the person will email you again.
Right. Absolutely. Let's talk about financial failure, Barbara. Have you ever had a cataclysmic event with your money?
I have to say that I've been lucky not to have had one yet. So that doesn't mean I won't have one, but I can't really, I haven't had that happen to me. Knock on whatever's, I don't have wood close to me. I'll knock on my computer, but not yet.
Good. No hard lessons learned, even just like, oops, didn't know that. And that, cost me a few bucks, or something that you kind of learned about recently that's helped you to save more.
Well, I will tell you one thing that happened to me. I was, so my twins are going to be 17 in January. So 4 years ago, I was planning their B'nai Mitzvah, in the process of finishing up my book, working full time. There was a lot going on at once. And I was redecorating my son's room to give him a more teenage room. And my son cared about nothing but the softness of the carpet. So they had given me a price for the carpet, which I thought was outrageous. But I was like, he's such a good kid and he really doesn't ask for anything. I'm going to do this. Well, when the carpet was installed, it turned out that the amount that I thought was crazy was the deposit. And It was my own fault, because I had, it was something that fell through the cracks, and I'm not used to that happening to me. But I will say there is a God, because a couple weeks later, we were, as part of that whole redecoration, we were changing the carpet on the landing of the steps, and they were cutting it in his room on his new carpet because there was no furniture in the room. And they cut through the carpet, the brand new, very expensive carpet. Ooh. And they called me and they said they were going to replace it. They could replace it at no additional charge. They could do this. I was like, how about this? You give me 50% off and we'll call it a day, because where they cut was going to be under where his bed was. And so
brilliant.
So I was able to
good negotiating.
But it was one of those things where, like, literally my heart sunk, and I just felt so disgusting, because it was so much more money than I ever in my wildest, I thought that the deposit was a ridiculous amount of money. And, but the carpet is very soft.
Well, that's good. I'm glad your son's happy with the carpet. That's so cute that he didn't want anything but like soft carpeting, which is important. I'm redoing my son's room right now. And when you're buying things online, it's, I don't have time to go in stores and touch everything. So I'm working with someone who's more experienced and knows what materials actually feel like, and can say, okay, this is going to be kind of a rougher rug or a thin rug, so it's good to
have somebody who knows.
Yeah. Especially if you're going to be sitting on the rug a lot, you don't want it to be comfortable. But I'm glad you got that 50% off deal. That was a brilliant negotiation, Barbara.
Thank you.
What's a financial habit that you have that helps you kind of streamline your finances?
So for my business, I use QuickBooks, and I am very rigid in many areas of my life. And I think that being rigid is, not a great thing, but it's a very positive thing when you're an organizer. But I'm, very routinized. I come home and I immediately put into QuickBooks, I create the invoice for the client that I'll send out at the end of the month. And I religiously will plug in the information with a description of what I did in the number of hours. And, I like to periodically, every week or so, I look at my accounts receivable reports. I look at, how much I've made for the year. Like I stay on top of it because it's interesting and important to me.
Someone once told me that they like to keep their house messy because it illustrates just how full and busy and boisterous their life is. What do you think about that philosophy?
Well, people, it's sort of become a badge of honor in our society to say, like, when somebody says, how are you? Oh, I'm really busy.
Oh, you're a hot mess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'm really busy.
And I think that the chaos can be very stressful on a family. And, if you think about, if you're starting your day as an adult and, you realize this, you have an important meeting, the shirt you were going to wear had a stain on it. So now you're running late because you're trying to find a different shirt that matches something else, but then that skirts at the cleaner. And then you're proofreading the document you're going to present while you're on the subway going to the meeting, and you realize there's a mistake, versus if you picked out your clothes the night before, you read your report the night before, you had it in your briefcase ready to go, you had breakfast set up on the table. Because what happens to a lot of people is they can somehow manage that. But then there's the wild card, like you get a call from your child's school that your child's front tooth got knocked out in a dodgeball game or something like that. And then it's chaos. And I think that those people, they might squeak through by the skin of their teeth and they might have some good stories to tell about it. But in the end, it's not a healthy way to live. And it's not, and I do a lot of lecturing on organizing for academic success. And I work with children and families on this. And it's not the kids that are the smartest that are the most successful in high school because there's simply not enough hours in the day. It's the kids that are the most organized.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Yeah.
And as a parent, like you have to set the example.
It's such an important skill to enforce to your children, even just like I remember growing up, we always had to make our bed. We always had to put the dishes away. We always had responsibilities and there was a routine to being in the home. There were expectations and there were things that we had to get done before we go to bed. And that I think spilled over into how we kept our homework in shape and our school issues. And then of course, in our personal relationships. So I think it can start at home and it can start young. And certainly there are going to be kids that will rise to the occasion. Others will have to nudge more along the way. But I think it's not just a matter of, like you said, keeping things organized and clean for the sake of being organized and clean. Like these are life lessons. And I think when you flex these muscles, it can mean happiness and clarity in so many other aspects of your lives, your finances, your relationships, your relationship with yourself. So I think you're doing really big, important work, Barbara. And maybe it starts with telling someone where to put their heirlooms, but really you're helping them out in their lives in big ways.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope that I do that. And the feedback that I get suggests that it does make a very big difference for people.
Okay, Barbara, let's do some So Money fill in the blanks where I start a sentence and then you finish it. First thing that comes to mind, maybe I'll throw in an organization, Mad Lib. If I won the lottery, the first thing I would do is
I would hire a driver.
Yeah, especially in New York City. Who wants to drive?
Yeah, exactly.
One thing that I spend on that makes my life easier or better is
someone who cooks.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 22 years of marriage, my husband will tell you I've cooked less than 10 meals. And if you keep the bar low, no one will expect it from you.
Nope. And why should you have to cook these days? I mean, I've actually started to use services like HelloFresh and Plated that they bring you the ingredients and then with the recipes, and then you just spend like 20 minutes putting it together. And I actually like that as I'm nesting right now with my second child.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many ways to not have to do that. And I'm not good at it and I don't enjoy it. So
there you go.
It.
There you go. Moving on. Right. One thing I splurge on that I can't do without is
clothing.
Really? What's your, like on work clothes? Like what's your athleisure? What's your style?
I don't do athleisure. But I do, I don't buy a lot, but I buy good things. So, I would rather have, expensive classic clothing that I can wear for years than have lots of random things. And it's funny, my daughter, who is turning 17, she had an internship this summer and she went out afterwards and she bought herself a pair of Chanel ballet flats. And there was a part of me that was a little horrified, but there was another part of me that said, you know what? She saw how hard she had to work to get those. And I would rather that she bought something that's classic that won't go out of style than spend it on a lot of junk.
Exactly. I have a pair of black Chanel flats that I got last year. I've worn them almost every day, and I'm not wearing them right now because my feet are swollen.
Aw, when are you?
And I don't want to ruin them.
When are you due?
I'm due in March. Early March.
So yeah, you're getting into the home stretch.
I'm wearing compression socks. Anything I can do to help with the expansion. Okay. But I have, in the process of owning this one pair of expensive shoes, gotten rid of so many other, $30, $40 flats that, obviously are worth their, worth $30 and they don't last very long. And they go with everything. And it's just, when I put them on, I feel like I'm dressed up, even though I'm just maybe wearing jeans. So I'm a big fan of that. And I do remember how much I paid. So I'm taking very good care of them.
Right. Exactly. You do. Like I've visited things a couple times before I've bought them.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I went in the store, I tried them on. I asked people who own them. I did research. This is not because it's like not a bag where you can place on a surface. Like these are your shoes, which you could, in New York, it's like tires, on a car. Like you just have to anticipate a lot of wear and tear. So I'm very careful about that. I don't want to like buy something expensive and then have it get chewed up in the streets. So
right. Exactly.
We could do a whole show on Chanel flats, apparently.
Apparently, yes.
Okay, answer this for me. And I don't ask guests this, but because you're the organization queen, the one area of my life that I'm not that organized in, admittedly, is
an area of my life that I'm not that organized.
There has to be something. And it could just be relative.
I've told you that my Achilles heel is really like the cooking. But I'm a big fan of putting things on autopilot, so we have, monthly menus, so it just keeps recirculating. What am I not organized about? Oh, I'll tell you something in my house that's not organized. I've sort of given up. My daughter, I'm so not interested in makeup and it's just not my thing. And my daughter has her bathroom drawers. I just don't open them anymore because they're so over. And actually, here's a good one. And this is more appropriate for your podcast. I'm going to say like 3 or 4 years ago, I delegated all of the, financial statements, everything to my husband. And there were certain things that I had in binders and, it was all very beautiful. And then once I got the annual statement, all the monthly statements went away. And about a year or so after I had delegated that to him, I opened up the cabinet and I almost fell on the floor because it was just piles of paper. And I couldn't speak. And he said, look, he goes, I have a system. I go, no, you have no system. Your system is no system. I said, what is this? And over the summer I fixed it. But it was tragic.
Tragic. Well, that's why, you can only do so much. You should hire some help and outsource the things that you don't have a system for, don't care to create a system around. Someone else can do it for you and save you time and hassle and some fights along the way.
Exactly.
When I was growing up, the one thing I wish I had learned about money is.
So money doesn't make you happy, but it can definitely give you peace of mind.
That is true. And also maybe things don't buy you happiness, but experiences do. And that's something that, we can all keep in mind as we head into the new year and look at ways to make our money go the extra mile and make us feel good. Barbara, thank you so much for this advice. It's so timely too. I know a lot of us are looking to get our finances and our lives streamlined and in better shape and organized. So we really appreciate you and your time. And everybody check out your book for moms. And the book is called Secrets of an Organized Mom. And your website is resourcefulconsultants.com. Barbara, Happy New Year.
Thank you. And thanks for having me today.
That's a wrap. If you'd like to learn more about Barbara, her website is resourcefulconsultants.com. She's also on Twitter at BarbaraReich, and Reich is spelled R-E-I-C-H. Don't worry, all of this information is at SoMoneyPodcast.com. You can download the transcript, listen to the audio, leave a comment, and also leave us a message for So Money's Friday episodes, Ask Farnoosh. You can leave us a voicemail. You can leave us a message. Whatever form of communication you prefer, we will take that into consideration for an upcoming Ask Farnoosh and get your question in the queue. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and I hope your day is so money.